All right, we ready to go, everybody? Let's do this morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Regional Chambers 2025 Economic Forecast Breakfast. A lot of energy inside this room this morning with so many leaders here in the Mahoning Valley, although some of us still need maybe an extra cup or two of coffee to really get going and kind of get there. Thankfully, that's provided out here in case you haven't had one or need your 13th cup like me. In this room this morning, there are so many leaders from around here, people who drive our local economy, make our communities stronger, and keep the entire region moving forward. And then you also have me. I'm Steve Vesey, by the way. I'm the morning show guy with WFMJ today, in case anybody tuned in this morning. If you didn't, then tune in tomorrow morning, and you'll be blown away because it's amazing. So today, I'm here to guide the ship, I guess, for a little while this morning. Today, our partners at Magnet, we're proud to present the 9th Annual Excellence in Manufacturing Award to a Valley company whose smooth skincare product has reached some unexpected places over the years, from the base of Mount Everest to the depths of a nuclear submarine as well. We'll also honor a Youngstown native who's the very definition of leading with heart and purpose. The chief executive of the Metro Health System will receive our special Valley Champion Award later this morning. You'll get stories from the CEO of ServPro Industries, a leading restoration company with more than 2,300 franchises in the U.S., and we'll hear about our local, regional, and national economies from a respected economic analyst with First National Bank, Chad Oviatt, and get an update on developments right here in the Valley from our chamber president and CEO, Guy Coviello. Also this morning, we'll be joined by a local high school student athlete who's been receiving world-class care at Akron Children's Hospital to select 2 recipients of an ultimate Cleveland Browns game day experience, something to look forward to. We have a great morning planned. We're thankful that all of you are here to be a part of it. Also, a quick note before we get started for any of our potential award winners this morning. This is a very photogenic spot up here, so don't just sprint off the stage when you're done. We need to get some pictures and everything, so just keep that in mind. Slight pause for photos so everybody can remember this forever. So to begin our program this morning, let's welcome Darlin McDermott from Magnet, the Manufacturing Advocacy and Growth Network, and Dr. Christine Alexander Rager, who are both to my right, the CEO of the Metro Health System. Once again, this year, the Chamber is proud to partner with Magnet to honor a Valley manufacturer making big strides in its industry. To introduce our 2025 Excellence in Manufacturing Award recipients, ladies and gentlemen, Darlin McDermott.
Well, good morning, everyone. What a great-looking group, and it's very unfortunate for me that I have to follow the radio guy. So hopefully I'll do some justice here to a wonderful company that I very much look forward to introducing. Before I read some prepared comments, I do want to thank our CEO, our COO, and our executive team here at Magnet. This has been an award that we've done for several years now, I think 7 in a row, and it's always a wonderful Mahoning Valley Youngstown marquee company that we're able to award. So Guy, I really want to thank you as well and your team. Before I begin with some prepared comments, I do want to let you know I have an example of this wonderful product that I'm proud to say wherever I've lived in this country and I'm from this area, I have been able to find. So without further ado, let me offer you some prepared comments about Red X and Utterly Smooth, and then we'll see a video. So, in every strong manufacturing community, there are companies that set the standard, those that focus on doing things the very right way, every day. Red X Industries is one of those companies. Nearly 5 decades ago, registered pharmacist William C. Kennedy and his wife Marg launched a wonderful business focused on animal products. With these animal care products, and I apologize, there's not a lot of light up here. One of William's early questions was how to handle the irritation with the cows that were being milked. And he created this Utterly Smoothing Cream to help withstand very, very harsh conditions. But before long, farmers began noticing something. Curious farmers began to offer that their hands were healing as well. That simple practice and that simple discovery led to the creation of Utterly Smooth. Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Let there be light. Thank you. My goodness. The spirit of curiosity and care that has guided Red X Industries ever since has been present. This family-run company has grown into a trusted American-made brand recognized around the world. Yet through every step of growth, it has also stayed true to its fundamental core values. Those were built on disciplined manufacturing, hiring local talent, and a belief that quality work speaks for itself. Today, the second and third generations of the Kennedy family, all present today, are very proud Youngstown State University graduates. Go Penguins! They are continuing the legacy with the same determination and pride that built the company from the start. Now, if you would please turn your attention behind me for a video, we are going to watch some comments and a wonderful story about this business that has had longevity and is growing in this community. Please turn your attention to the screen. Congratulations on behalf of Magnet, and thank you.
I'm Linda Kuzier, and you're at Red X Industries in Salem, Ohio. We manufacture utterly smooth body creams. We've been in business since 1978. Our products were developed by our father, who was a registered pharmacist, who decided to leave the retail environment and start his own business with our mother, Marg, and would never expect that almost 50 years later we would be in the position where we are making roughly 1,000 gallons a day and shipping it all around the country into 6 other countries internationally. Years ago, batch size was about 50 gallons on a big day. We would make a pallet of our own branded cream, and we would always worry that it was going to be sitting there too long. Now a pallet can be 15 minutes, a half an hour operation, and we have roughly 60 pallets out there staged to ship for this week's efforts. People think that Utterly Smooth is just about soft, smooth skin. Nurses and physicians will recommend that their patients use Utterly Smooth. For side effects during chemotherapy treatments, we'll hear about scuba divers use Utterly Smooth to make their wetsuit get on easier. People reloading their shells, they use it, it makes it easier. Mountain climbers had Utterly Smooth in their kit going to Everest. Submariners had it on board. I mean, skiers, everybody makes it their own. When I found out we won the Excellence in Manufacturing Award, I was honored, amazed, and dumbfounded all at the same time, because there are so many fabulous manufacturers in the area. It's hard to believe that we were the company that was picked. We've been talking about a lot of people and organizations that have helped us in this area. Farmore's gone. MedVec helped us with the loan for the buildings. Guy has always been a great supporter of ours, and there's been a lot of people that have helped us get to where we're at. So we're very, very grateful. We have worked very hard for very long, and we're not about the recognition. We don't need the pat on the back. But yet when we got it, we're also thrilled. Our employees are fabulous. It's not just one person, it is a whole team. And the orders come in and they don't fill themselves, and they don't route themselves, they don't get to the destination by themselves. We make something we're very proud of, and we stand by the fact that Ohio is about manufacturing. And we're looking forward to seeing what the next 50 so years will bring for Utterly Smooth.
Round of applause, and we are hand delivering, by the way, the award this morning. Just got to make sure I grab the right one. Darlene, you can come on down too.
Thank you. Congratulations again.
It's funny, I lived in New York for about 12 years, and I grew up around here, and I had no idea that this product was from where I grew up. So that just kind of goes to show sort of the national following that this has. So Bill, Mike, Marg, Linda, really great product. Congratulations on everything that you guys have done. We are proud to present you with the Excellence in Manufacturing Award. Told you there was going to be a photo op. By the way, while we're doing this, if you look at the middle of your table, each of you have a couple bottles of the product in case you'd like to take one if you want more. There are some out in the hallway as you head out later on this morning, so feel free to grab some. Thank you again to Red X Industries. Congratulations on your dedication, keeping everything running utterly smoothly over the years. I had to throw in a dad joke at some point, right? That was just going to happen. Also, a huge thank you to Darlin and everybody at Magnet for all the work that you guys do here around the valley, helping push forward and celebrate some of the manufacturers. Let's give a round of applause, please. Obviously, events like this don't happen without some very generous sponsors helping us out this morning, and last night, for that matter. The Chamber is grateful to the sponsors who supported both this breakfast and last night's VIP activities. We'll hear from our Platinum Breakfast sponsor, First National Bank, in just a bit, but I also like to recognize and thank some of our additional sponsors that made today's event happen. Keynote sponsor, ServPro Team Dobson. Silver sponsor, Boken Sons. The magazine sponsor this year, Waypoint 4180. Our beverage sponsor, Dawn Incorporated. VIP dinner sponsors, Compco, Humtown, and Lake to River. Our VIP reception sponsors, number 1 Cochrane, Akron Children's Hospital, Mahoning Valley, Aqua, Brennan Manna Diamond, Buckeye Construction, Cafaro Company, DeSalvo Construction, DeTore Companies, HSH Contractor, Trumbull Industries, and Valorec. Our bronze sponsors this morning, Infinity Construction, Kruliak, Wilkins, Griffiths, and Doherty, Platts Realty Group, Schwabels, Shapes Unlimited, Thomas Steel Incorporated, and the Western Reserve Port Authority. And last but not least, our broadcast sponsor this morning is Armstrong. That's a very long list. We are very thankful for that fact. So let's give a round of applause to all of our sponsors. All right, moving on to the next portion of our program this morning. We're meeting a woman whose path to becoming CEO of the Metro Health System began just steps away from her home on Youngstown's north side. She spent nearly 3 decades as a family medicine physician and earned her role as president and CEO in October of last year. Besides caring for her patients, which is her first love, Dr. Christine Alexander Rager founded Metro Health's school health program, bringing comprehensive health care directly to students at school. She also sparked the creation of Metro Health's medical outreach to the homeless and served as president of the medical staff for 2 years. She earned her medical degree at the Ohio State University College of Medicine and Public Health. Please welcome Dr. Alexander Rager to join me for a conversation about growing up here in the Valley and her role at Metro Health. All right, I think that's on. There we go. Dr. Alexander Rager, congratulations, by the way, and thank you for joining us this morning. I'm gonna start with a hard-hitting question. Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay, we're putting your roots up against your current role in your area. If we're talking ice cream, are you going Handel's or Mitchell's?
Yes. Any and all ice cream is welcome. But I do have to tell you, if we have time for a quick story.
Absolutely.
About Mitchell's ice cream and maybe why it has the edge.
Ooh.
I mean, growing up, Handel's was everything, right? If you got to go to Handel's for ice cream, it was a good day in your life. Mitchell's ice cream was gaining in popularity, and I was very close to the residents. I was a residency director at that time, and one of the residents was dating a guy named Pete. I didn't know Pete's last name. I didn't know anything about Pete. Fast forward, Alex and Pete get married, and she calls and says, we want to have everybody over for dinner. We just bought a house. We're at dinner, and I'm helping Alex in the kitchen, and she says, Pete was up really late last night, like making what he hopes is the best dessert. Like he really is worried you guys aren't going to like it. And I'm thinking, wow, never knew Pete baked, because Pete says next to nothing. And so as dessert comes out, there are these huge vats of ice cream, and Mitchell's paper like cups that they serve ice cream in. And I'm thinking, really? You don't have bowls? I mean, I would have brought a gift if I knew you didn't have any bowls. Like, what's up with the Mitchell's cups? And one of my friends leans over and says, you really don't know Pete Mitchell? makes Mitchell's ice cream. And I was like, oh, no, I didn't know that. Because again, Pete never says anything. So I knew that this owner the whole time. And so, because of that and because of, Alex being a resident and all that, Mitchell's probably has the edge on that.
All right. We'll allow it just
this once.
just for the sake of ice cream, because everybody's a winner. Kind of like as
Everybody's a
you
winner.
mentioned.
I like that.
I always like the origin story behind somebody's professional and personal journey. Can you tell us a little bit about how growing up around here kind of influenced you as you began and then continued your career?
So definitely, my upbringing really, really drove my decision to go into medicine. My uncle was an OBGYN here, and I just thought he had the coolest job ever. Like, he got to deliver babies. How great is that, And so really, I was about 4 years old when I said, yeah, I think I want to do what he does. Like, I want to do that. And everybody kind of chuckled, and my grandmother pulled me aside, and she was like, oh, no, that's your dream. You get your dream. You go do it. Go get it. And I think that sort of inspiration from my grandmother, and that I was raised really deeply rooted in faith, and that for what blessings you get, you have to use them for the betterment of others. And so, just that frame, and throughout my education, I gravitated towards science and math, and, really had so many supports along the way, but really the idea of serving and living your faith, medicine just kind of pulled that all together for me.
When you think about growing up around here, does anything stick out to you? What are anything that come to mind immediately that are favorite things to look back on about your upbringing around here?
Yeah, I think it's just so much about community. Like, you can't think of Youngstown and not think about community, right? And how important community is to every single person that grows up here. And that everything that you do, like, I think about, we were really connected to our church, so like all the different volunteer experiences. There used to be an international festival, and so we would learn all of the dances and go and perform. And then, like, I still to this day remember some of the women who were decorating Easter eggs, like using toothpicks to paint them, like in these unbelievable patterns. Just really having this amazing, beautiful example of respect your neighbor, love your neighbor, and you give your all for your community. Those lessons are so deeply embedded in me, and that's what I think about when I think about home.
It's kind of funny that you mentioned that too, because I feel like Metro Health is sort of known for some of those same things, right. Equity and innovation. What is your vision for where healthcare is going?
Yeah. And I think about this a lot. And you mentioned the school health program. And again, I came into this position in a safety net hospital that is all about serving the community, right? That wasn't by accident. I am a product of my environment, right? And so thinking all of the time about how do we get medicine to the people? So often in medicine, it was all about, like, blame the patient, wait for them to come in. Oh, we didn't find the cancer because they never came to get the test. Or, we didn't control the diabetes because they never came to us. And that's kind of the environment in which I was trained. And as you move through, you realize you got to get to the people where they are. You can't just wait for them to come to you. And that's part of school health, and that's part of the homeless outreach. But I really do think we have to get past the brick and mortar of here's the doctor's office and it's the only place where healthcare is going to happen. Because 80% of what impacts someone's health happens outside that office. 80%. So if we want a healthier community, you got to get out to where they are, and you got to help them figure out how do you get healthy food? How do you exercise? If you live in a dangerous neighborhood, how do you get a place to exercise, right? How do you do those things that we know will keep you healthy in the long run? So really the future is getting out into the community more, embedding ourselves there, empowering our patients. We, through COVID, COVID, God knows, brought a lot of distress, but it also forced us to change in ways that would have taken decades. Right? We now have hospital in the home, right? Who would have thought about that? Having a hospitalized patient at home where we come to you and you have a visiting nurse that comes every single day and you have a telehealth visit with the physician. It's a whole new model because people don't love being in the hospital. What do? We torture you all the time. We come in at 4 o'clock in the morning to get your blood work done so when the docs come in at 6, we have your results. Is that really patient-centered? No, so it really is putting the patient more at the center of what we're doing and then building all of the programming and interventions around that.
It's amazing to see the evolution. Let's talk about this award a little bit. Obviously, it goes to somebody who never forgets their roots, never forgets where they come from. What does this award mean to you? And do you have any message out there for anybody who is in the shoes that you were in, a few years ago, in terms of how to be sort of a leader in the community and in your field?
Wow, there's a lot to unpack in there.
I know.
Yeah. For me, being recognized by the place where I grew up is just incredibly overwhelming on one hand and really humbling on the other. Because, growing up in Youngstown, we tend to be a humble people, right? Like we tend not to tell our story or brag a lot. So I tend to shy away from the recognition, to be honest. For me, the real joy is what we can do for our patients in our community, what we can do for our learners, right? What do we do to make the world a better place? That's the joy. That's the treat, right? But being recognized from the place who made me who I am is really special. I think that's just incredible. I came out of Youngstown, going to medical school, like really down the road, and thought I would just come back to Youngstown and practice. Like, that was my goal. St. Elizabeth's had, like, my name stamped, in the forehead. And then for me, there were twists and turns that happened, and I think that's the driving message, is to be open to the experience. Coming out of medical school, I wanted to be the dean of the medical school. And I was like, yep, I can do that job. I want to go back and be that person. And then through life experiences, I went in these other directions. And I really never had the goal of being a residency director. And then right out of residency and fellowship, I became a residency director. And had I been closed to those experiences, I would not be in the seat that I'm in. And in this seat, it was really hard to think about, this job really meant I have left patient care in a very significant way. And that was hard for me. And my 15-year-old, when I was saying, hey, Dr. Walker's asked me to take this job, what do you think about that? And of course, he's gaming the whole time, because, can he leave his game to talk to his mother? No, he might miss the bad guy. And so as he's typing away, he looks at me and he goes, are you going to be able to help more people this way? And I was like, wow, okay, you get it. Why didn't I get it, right off the bat? But in this seat, I can help more people than I could help if I was in practice, one patient, one family at a time. I can really now help to shift how we practice healthcare, so it really is better for those families.
Amazing to see how many lives that you can impact through medicine, and it all started around here. Everybody give a big round of applause for Dr. Alexandra Rager.
Thank you.
And here you go. There is your award.
Thank you so much.
Quite welcome. I have 7 mics sitting here. There's one here, there's one over here. I'm using this one in case anybody's wondering. Sorry. All right, coming up next, before we can move on to our keynote speaker, it is raffle time, something I know a few of you have been definitely looking forward to today. 2 lucky people in this room are going to be walking away with an ultimate Cleveland Browns game day experience. Each winner will get 16 suite tickets, 4 VIP parking passes, and in-suite fine dining with top shelf drinks as well. That's no small thing. When the Browns take on the San Francisco 49ers, this is November 30th at Huntington Bank Field up in Cleveland. The raffle's presented by ServPro Team Dobson in partnership with the Akron Children's Hospital Foundation and the Youngstown-Warren Regional Chamber Foundation as well. And more importantly, it helps support kids and families all across our region. So joining us up here this morning will be Trinity Finney and her mother, Tamika Jenkins. Trinity is a high school basketball player and Akron Children's patient who is receiving exceptional care after suffering a serious knee injury. Her strength and spirit reflect the care and dedication of the Akron Children's team, helping kids recover and return to what they love to do the most. So let's welcome Trinity and Tamika to the stage. Also joining them this morning will be Paul Olivier, the VP of Akron Children's Mahoning Valley, Jim Dobson, the owner of ServPro Team Dobson, and Jim Gazier, the president of the Youngstown-Warren Regional Chamber Foundation. If everybody could come on up to pick the winners this morning. Also, while they are making their way up to the stage, also at this time, I'd like to ask Brett Ponton, Jim Standahar, Chris Colella, and Chad Oviatt coming up to the stage as well, getting ready for the next portion of our program this morning. Now, for the raffle drawing itself, they'll be drawing two different winners. If it happens to be the same person picked for number 1 and number 2, they're not going to get all of them. We'll pick a different winner for the second one to make sure we have two different winners up on the stage today. Are you guys ready to make the pick? All right. I believe it is sitting over there, right? I'll pick it up. I believe this is it, right? I hope so. Give me a thumbs up if this is it. Okay. All right. First winner, go ahead. Stirring the pot, literally stirring the pot this morning. Our first winner is Linda Cuzio. Is that Linda Kuzier? Hey, congratulations. All right. There we go. There's winner number 1. All right. And our second winner, DeSalvo Construction. Congratulations. All right, everybody, thank you so much for doing the raffle. You are dismissed. We appreciate it. All right, next, for the next group that is joining me up here on the stage, Brett Ponton's the CEO of ServPro Industries, Jim Standahar from ServPro Team Dobson, and Chris Colella and Chad Oviatt with First National Bank. The Chamber is thankful to have a longtime friend and supporter in ServPro Team Dobson, the Valley's leading restoration company that helps people rebuild their businesses, homes, and frankly, their lives after suffering a disaster. It's my pleasure to introduce this morning Jim Standahar, the Director of Strategic Partnerships with ServPro Team Dobson, for remarks and the introduction of our keynote speaker this morning, Brett Ponton, the CEO of ServPro Industries.
Good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be with you today. I think I better pull out these glasses as I age gracefully. You know, my big worries are no longer public speaking. They're now, can I make it up those 4 steps gracefully? And can I see what I'm reading? So those are the things that are challenging. Once again, good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning as your keynote sponsor. It's great to support such an organization like the Chamber, and I want to thank Guy and his team for bringing the business community together this morning. We're undoubtedly blessed with such a vibrant chamber here in the Youngstown-Warren area, and I want to make sure that Guy and his team get a welcome round of applause for that. I'm also very proud to represent ServPro Team Dobson today and have the opportunity to share our corporate leader with everybody this morning. But before I get into that and before I finish my remarks, I wouldn't want to go any further without recognizing our owner and CEO President Jim Dobson and also the great colleagues that I work with at ServPro. So if you guys could please stand for a moment and be recognized. They are such great people to work with and quite frankly, some of the greatest people I've met in my career. ServPro Team Dobson, for those of you that don't know us, is a locally owned franchise specializing in cleaning, restoration, and construction. While ServPro is a national brand with over 2,200 locations, our team operates 19 franchises right here in Northeast Ohio and Western Pennsylvania. We serve the communities such as Youngstown-Warren and Cleveland, Pittsburgh, and the Erie markets. At our core, our philosophy is very simple. We restore more than just property. We restore peace of mind. When a disaster strikes, whether it's water, fire, or storm damage, our team responds with urgency, empathy, and the highest professional standards. We believe the foundation of great service is communication, consistency, and care. Those are the values that help us not only rebuild homes and businesses, but helps us build trust. What truly sets Team Dobson apart is how deeply we're embedded in the communities that we serve. We don't just show up when something goes wrong. we show up year-round. From sponsoring over 30 local high schools' athletic programs to supporting events like Y Live and the Panerathon, and to our highly visible partnerships with Youngstown State University and the Cleveland Browns. Our marketing philosophy is simple: be visible, be involved, and be valuable to the people who call this region home. At ServPro Team Dobson, we often say that our work begins with restoration, but it ends with a relationship. We're honored to serve the community, employ local talent, and invest back into the places that have invested in us. And we're certainly mostly honored today to serve and support this wonderful event. Our guest speaker today is Brett Ponton. Brett is the CEO of ServPro Industries, which franchises more than 2,200 ServPro locations across the United States and Canada from its headquarters in Gallatin, Tennessee. For over 55 years, ServPro has been the trusted name people turn to when disaster strikes. Whether it's fire and water damage, construction, mold mitigation, or biohazard cleanup, ServPro's network of independent, owned, and operated franchises is ready to respond. From million-square-foot commercial facilities to individual homeowners, business owners, and major insurance companies all count on ServPro to deliver on their promise of making it like it never even happened. Brett brings nearly 3 decades of experience driving profitable growth in franchise and service organizations. Before joining ServPro in October 2023, he served as CEO at Terminex and led organizations including Monroe Incorporated and Heartland Automotive. Brett began his career at Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company, where he rose through the ranks over 16 years, Vice President of Marketing. He holds a bachelor's degree of science in finance from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and I can proudly say that he still has a 330 area code on his telephone, which is really cool. So let's go have a short talk with Brett Ponton, CEO of ServPro. Please give him a nice Youngstown welcome.
It is interesting, by the way, going back to the cell phone just for a second. Good morning, everybody. You always know where people were at in their careers when they got their first cell phone, right? Because that area code stays with you, and you take your phone with you wherever you go. So I'm a proud 330 area code holder here. So it's great to be back here in Northeast Ohio.
Very neat. Okay, aside from your introduction, tell us a little bit about Brett Ponton, separate from your career and separate from the business world. Who is Brett Ponton?
Yeah, well, let me bookend this a little bit. I'm just recently got married, and I now have 4 stepchildren. So I've always in my career I've been very focused on career, and unfortunately didn't have a lot of time for family. So late in life now, I've discovered, I guess, the pleasure of having a fulfillment that comes from having a great family and now 4 stepchildren. So we reside full-time, or they do, I should say, in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, and I split time in Nashville, where our corporate headquarters is with Gallatin. But as you might demise from my bio here, I grew up in Nebraska. Went to Nebraska, which I know is probably a guaranteed win on the Buckeyes schedule now every year, unfortunately. But my father worked for Goodyear growing up. He worked in a factory. So I came from a blue-collar background, and my mother ran her own beauty salon in a very small town in northeastern Nebraska where I grew up. So I'm a product of a small community and a small business owner, and also a blue-collar background that my father had. So that was the connection to Goodyear. So throughout my summers coming back from college, I always worked in the factories at Goodyear. And my father's motivation was realize how difficult that is, and that might keep you in school and keep you engaged to form hopefully a better lot in life than what he had. So I've always have a soft spot in my heart for Goodyear Tire and Rubber Company right up the road, and feel very grateful that I had the opportunity to spend 16 wonderful years there. I got a little bit intrigued by private equity back in the mid-2000s, and I I ended up doing my first private equity stint when the Carlyle Group bought an old division of Goodyear called Engineered Products, which was everything but tires. And that gave me another life experience where I had the opportunity to move to China and head up the Asia division for that business. And that was just a fascinating life experience for me, is to experience a new culture in a place where you don't speak the language, understand the language, and the complexities that come with that. So all of those things, I think, have fostered the unique set of business skills, I guess, that I now have the grateful fortune here to bring to Serpro.
That's awesome. We're very lucky to have you. You've only been here, like you said, about 2 years, but it's been a really joy to get to know you, and I really want to take this time to have a little fun later on. We're going to get some serious questions first, but then we'll close with a little bit of fun and get to know you even a little bit better. Hey, Brett, the forecast of the day, the subject of the day is economic forecasting. Yeah. We're going to save a lot of those intricate details for Chad, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that affect not only our industry, but a lot of the industries that people out in the audience work in, okay? Yeah. From a CEO's perspective, one of the biggest things that you have to do is differentiate our company from our competitors. So the first question deals with industry positioning. The definition of industry positioning is the strategy or the approach to differentiating yourself from your competitors and in your specific industry. So my question to you is, how do you integrate economic forecasting into strategy or decision making when expansion or growth is being considered?
Yeah, it was a really good question. By the way, I'll walk you through my journey, because I think as you go from company to company, and I've had the opportunity to work for, I guess, 5 different companies now. When I first join any organization, I think it's really important to understand what are the business drivers or the macro drivers that drives the industry and the business that you're in. And it's really important context to understand that. And then, of course, as business leaders, it's up to us to make certain your company is well positioned to be responsive to any shifts in those trends that you might see. And when you look at Serpro, specifically here, look, our business sits at the crossroads of consumer behavior, household, income, those types of things. We sit at the crossroads of that, insurance companies and what's going on with them. And the third variable that really drives this business is weather, trends, et cetera. So it's really important for us to have a suite of metrics that we're looking at consumer behavior, what's going on with consumers. Big component of our business is insurance data. So understanding loss ratios with insurance companies is a great predictor for us to understand their behavior, not only with us as a service provider to them, but also to homeowners in terms of what are they going to be contending with in terms of premium increases, et cetera. And then finally, weather forecasting is a big deal. We are in the disaster response business, and disasters happen at a very local level, but they're also happening on a national level. So at Serpro, we have a national disaster response center that we spooled up in Gallatin, Tennessee, which is outside of Nashville. We have a full-time meteorologist on our staff that we are constantly assessing the situation both at a local level and also any national disasters that we have. Because from our perspective, it's less about predicting, it's more about creating a business model that can respond rapidly to those changes when they arise.
Brett, recently labor has become such a very important and very controversial subject matter, not only for our business but for many others. The restoration industry is very labor intensive, and it's also certification driven. Mm-hmm. How do you forecast and prepare for fluctuations in labor availability and wage inflation?
Yeah. Well, let me digress just for a second, because one of the things I loved about Serpro, and one of the key reasons why I came to this business, was the fact that we have tremendous purpose in what we do. And I think it's a key differentiator for our industry and our model is a chance as an employer. We get the opportunity to have people come work for a business where they get a chance to go home at night and feel really good about what they do. And that's important to me. It was important to me at this step of my career to be in a business that has tremendous purpose. But that really helps, I think, with the value proposition that our local franchisees are contending with when they're looking to attract the right people into that organization. that is setting out to do very, very difficult work and difficult extenuating circumstances there. So that's a little bit more at the micro level. Let's move back up to macro. And naturally, one of the things that we watch pretty closely is what's going on with unemployment rates regionally, and we cross-check our national views of those with local sensing that we get from our local franchisees. Wage inflation and pressure certainly is something that we're contending with. And from that, I think we're very focused as a franchisor to make certain that we're providing the right support to our local franchisees to enhance their value proposition in hiring local employees. And that's a really important point that I've learned in my career, especially in a services model like this one, is you have to be a great marketer to people to come want to work for your organization. And that starts with having a really compelling value proposition on why I should come work for your company and what's in it for me if I do that. So related to that, we're very focused on developing leadership and training for our franchisees that they can use with their people to help establish career pathing for people. So they take what would normally be as a pretty difficult job and give people an opportunity to take that job and make that a career.
At ServPro, we pride ourselves and we stand behind the slogan, ready for whatever happens, right? Being business ready requires a skill in handling supply chain and material cost forecasting. So how have the recent supply chain disruptions changed how you manage, at your level, relationships with suppliers that in turn support your franchises on the ground?
Yeah, great question. I think we all learned this during COVID. There was two big lessons I learned, but I'm sure we all learned these, which is number one, just how fragile our supply chains are around the world and how interrelated those supply chains are. And if you have one disruption in one link of the chain, it creates major disruption in your business. And that created a pivot for me to think differently, obviously, about the model. I grew up in a world where we were very focused on reducing working capital by driving towards just-in-time inventory models and squeeze that cash out of the supply chain. We kind of reverted back to more traditional methods and said, look, we need more redundancy and proximity in our supply chain. So we did a couple of key things in our business model. We created the right incentives to get inventory for us, equipment and inventory into the market. So created the right economic incentives, terms, et cetera, for franchisees to do that. And on the manufacturing side, we did two things. One, we strengthened our contracts and relationships and set clearer expectations with our suppliers for protective capacity and for additional capacity and redundancy in suppliers. So that's on the supply chain side. I think the other big lesson learned during COVID was around leadership and employment practices. I grew up in a world as a Gen Xer where I valued office time and kind of butts in seats, butts in chairs, and I believe strongly that collaboration comes from people working in the office together. And one of the things we had to learn as organizations is how do you mobilize those workforces pretty quickly and rely on remote workforces, which I think has created a little bit of a culture shift now in our country from an employment point of view where we have to be more responsive and more flexible with the next generation workers to be flexible in that right. So that's been a big change for me.
And more resilient.
Absolutely.
That leads me to my next question.
Yeah.
The Youngstown-Warren area is known for its grit, or the ability to dust itself off and keep moving forward when dealt some kind of a shocking blow. Mm-hmm. From your perspective, how do companies like ServPro help strengthen communities like ours, not just in times of crisis, but in supporting long-term growth and vitality for our local economy?
Yeah, well, I think it starts with this. By the way, it's having. Well, let me digress for a second. ServPro, we're a 100% franchise model. ServPro Corporate, we don't operate any locations. We don't have any company-owned operations. We rely exclusively through our local ownership. And one of the things I love about the franchise model, and I think ServPro epitomizes this with Team Dobson, is the power that comes with a nationwide network of interrelated or interconnected franchisees all working towards one purpose, one mission, with a common set of values, with a really strong brand. And that really strong brand has opened up doors for us to create national relationships with key people that we get the opportunity to then execute that on a local level. At the local level, this is where the real power comes in, is you take local ownership that is absolutely committed to being a great employer in the communities that we serve, get plugged in, just like this, neighbor helping neighbor, business helping business at the local level, that really brings together the power of great nationwide brand strength and support, coupled with really strong, engaged owner operators in the local markets. And I've had the opportunity to run both models. At Terminex, we were, for the most part, a company-owned model. In my days in tires and auto service, that was all company-owned. And the saying is quite clear. In those models, I had managers running remote locations and not owners. And there's no substitute for having owners represent a business in a local area to drive this level of engagement that we see firsthand here with Team Dobson.
From a perspective of looking forward, as we begin to wrap up a little bit here, from a perspective of looking forward, what metrics or indicators do you personally track to stay ahead of the emerging market trends?
Yeah, you know, let's start with the most macro here, and I think that's just what's going on with catastrophic events for us. That's the biggest driver for us, macro driver, is what's going on with the weather. So that's first and foremost, is we are very focused on understanding weather trends, but more importantly, I think, build the capability here that allows us to react faster and mobilize equipment and crews faster to the place where disaster strikes. I'll share one example with you, if I can. We've been very committed to developing AI data-driven solutions at ServPro here, and I'll give you one example. We had a regional flood about 2 months ago in Milwaukee, and it was our first chance to take our new systems and capability out for a test drive. The first thing that AI helped us with is when we saw a spike in demand that came in to this localized flash flooding event there, we leveraged AI to make certain that we could capture every phone call, answer every phone call, and be responsive to that. So from that was our demand signal. So once we knew that we had really strong demand there, we had to quickly assess capacity. How much capacity did the local franchisees have? And we quickly then started to mobilize support crews from surrounding areas. And that was all done through AI, predictive analytics, et cetera, to create a very responsive supply chain to that. The other thing we use predictive analytics and AI on is just help us prioritize and triage opportunities there to make certain that as we dispatch opportunities to franchisees and crews on the ground, that we're using the best methods to prioritize those things to get to the people that need the most help fastest, is another example. So that's one big trend on that. I touched on the other things that we watch pretty closely here, just like you all do. What's going on with the consumer for us is really important. What consumers do in our space related to insurance, if you're faced with a situation where your homeowner's insurance policy premium is going up, in many cases you then have to react to that with choosing to raise deductibles or other methods to keep it affordable. So it forces us to say, well, if that trend is happening in the business, how do we be responsive to that? So one example of that is we've spooled up and launched additional consumer financing options to help consumers cover those uncovered losses in situations that we have there. So that's related to the consumer and kind of the implications of that and then the actions that we take as a business to be responsive to those trends. Unemployment, labor is a big component of this. We're certainly watching that from a wage inflation point of view, et cetera. And then probably the single biggest area that we're dialed into is just what's going on with insurance companies. And if you look at the last 5 or 6 years, there's been an unprecedented amount of catastrophic events, whether it's hurricanes across the Atlantic coast or wildfires in California. Loss ratios with insurance companies have spiked and have gone the wrong direction there. So we have to be responsive to that. We understand there's going to be causation, that will come from that in terms of their approach with claims management, et cetera. So those are some of the big dials on our dashboard that we're watching, but more importantly, not just watching them, start making business decisions to understand what are the implications of those trends and how do we position our business to be responsive, that environment.
One last closing hard question before we have a little fun. If you were advising any new or even an existing entrepreneur today, what's the most important thing you'd tell them from your overall work experience?
Well, related to forecasting, look, in my opinion, cash flow forecasting is absolutely the most important capability every company should be really focused on. I mean, at the end of the day, most companies fail not because of lack of demand, but because of lack of cash. And getting on top of that with I'm a big believer in a 13-week cash flow forecast. You truly understand what are your outlays over the next quarter plus, and a great understanding of your cost structure, and making certain that you're aligned relative to your demand profile to ensure that you have consistent cash flow in the business. It's the life of any business, of course, as we know. Two other add-ons to that we're very focused on, I think is really important. The key levers I think that any business owner gets a chance to pull is your pricing lever and understanding your customer metrics, of course, and productivity. I mean, those are the critical things, in my opinion, that every business owner should have a keen focus on. Cash flow management, what's going on with pricing, and what's going on with your customer, and how productive is your organization.
Good advice. All right, before we get out of here, let's have some fun.
Yeah, sure, great.
Let's humanize you a little bit to the crowd. One-word answers. You ready?
All right, let's do it.
All right. Early riser or night owl?
Definitely early riser.
Summer or winter?
I'm a fall guy. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Probably in more ways than one. I'm a fall guy, but we'll see.
That's a play on words
See how
there,
the
I'm
year
sure.
goes.
All right, how about cats or dogs?
Definitely a dog guy.
Okay. The beach or the mountains?
Well, here's the irony, right? I live at the beach, not on the beach, but I'm in Hilton Head. We're at the beach, but I love the mountains.
Here's my favorite. Cookies or cake?
Well, my wife would probably tell me neither, but I'm more of a cookie guy.
I think I know the answer to this one. Remote work or in office?
Definitely in office.
I figured. All right, play it safe or risk it all?
Yeah, look, I'm probably right in the middle, honestly. But look, I have a tendency to be a bit more conservative. And related to ServPro, you know, when you inherit a great brand like this one, you have a tendency to be a bit cautious and conservative with your approach, not to do damage to something that's really compelling here. So probably play it safe.
All right, so I live by an old adage that you know how happy you are with your career, how you feel on Sunday night, right?
Yeah.
So are you a Sunday night guy or a Monday morning person?
I would say Monday morning, but I'm probably like a lot of you all here. One of the things I've learned over the last 20 years is how difficult it is to unplug and get away from the business here. So probably for me, Sunday night, I start thinking about the week ahead and get ready and prepared for Monday morning. So let's call it both.
First job?
You know, let me share two things with you because I think they were great experiences for me. I think I started working, gosh, I don't know, 13, 14 years old as a corn detasseler.
Corn?
Corn, yeah. So in the seed corn business, when you grow up in Nebraska, we have a lot of corn out there. And the seed corn business, I don't understand the science behind it, but certain rows of corn need the tassels removed in the fields. So we would get up at 5 in the morning, walk through the fields, and pull tassels off the corn. Was my first job as a teenager.
That's awesome. Hidden talent, last one.
Hidden talent. I wish I could say I was like great at karaoke or magic tricks. So I don't have any of those skills, unfortunately. But probably if somebody described it, hidden talent. Like I think I have a knack for pattern recognition. I think I can recognize themes and trends and data and information, and then connect dots and see things maybe that others don't see. So unfortunately, it's all business related. And I need to work on better hidden talents around my magic show or karaoke, Jim.
Brett, thanks for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, Brett Ponton.
Thank you.
Brett and Jim, thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. I really like the fact that you employ a meteorologist so that everybody in here knows that they're good for something other than just you throwing something at your TV when they tell you it's going to snow on Monday. It's going to snow on Monday. Sorry, in case you didn't tune in this morning. Well, as we turn now to this morning's forecast, the Chamber is proud to recognize another longtime partner and friend, First National Bank. Their continued support has helped make events like this possible and strengthen so many of the Chamber's key initiatives all across the Valley. I'm honored to welcome from First National Bank, Chris Colella, the Senior Vice President and Commercial Banking Team Leader.
Steve's a little taller than me. Thanks, Steve. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Economic Forecast Breakfast. For those that don't know me, I am Chris Colella with First National Bank. I oversee our commercial banking efforts here in the Valley within our Ohio region. This includes markets in Northeast Ohio and beyond. It is First National Bank's honor to once again partner with the Chamber in sponsoring today's event. We'd like to congratulate the Valley Champion Award winner, Dr. Alexander Rager, and the Excellence in Manufacturing Award winner, REDX. This is a great example of the passion, talent, and work ethic that is in the Valley. Congratulations to you all. Welcome to Youngstown, Brett. Obviously, the Surf Pro team under Jimmy and Jim Standahar is another example, and we're proud to share the stage with you today. It's been an exciting year for us here at FNB. We are confident that our strengthening presence makes us an ideal partner for many and a stronger future for the Valley and our surrounding region. We are committed to supporting the local business that is here through our expanded capabilities. Our integrated services now include investment banking, merger and acquisition advisory, and a full range of wealth management, private banking, and insurance products, to include commercial banking as well. And we are supported by award-winning, evolving digital banking platform designed for convenience and growth. As we look ahead into 2026, my colleagues and I are eager to partner with many of you that we don't already today, and to explore new opportunities for mutual growth for yourself, the bank, and for the community we live in. Before I move on, just briefly, if I could have the First National Bank team stand up, please reach out to them if you can before the day is out. Just introduce yourself. FNB. With a recent announcement and excitement around Kimberly Clark's investment, the partnership of Foxconn and SoftBank related to AI, the Youngstown Business Incubator's lead in technology and additive manufacturing, continued growth and expansion of wonderful healthcare providers like Southwoods Health, Mercy Health, Akron Children's, Metro Health, and along with all the other long-standing businesses that have helped build our valley, we have so much to be excited about. Thanks to the established businesses that built our valley, many of them here today, REDX being an example, 50 to 100 years of business is not easily attained. Let us continue to promote the positives and work together to attract people back to the area. It's up to all of us to be the best spokespeople for our community. The Regional Chamber and our economic development initiatives include Lake to River, Western Reserve Port Authority, East Cape Regional Council of Government, Valley Partners, and others across the entire region. Together, this team is dedicated to leveraging the resources we currently have, including all of those that sit in the room today. The Chamber and many others are addressing population, workforce development, and housing issues to leverage all our future opportunities. As we continue to move forward with all the great opportunities in front of us, we are interested in how the economy could impact all of their success. For this discussion, please join me in welcoming our next speaker, a fellow employee of First National Bank, Chad Oviatt. Chad is the Chief Investment Officer for First National Bank's Wealth Management Group, holds more than 25 years of financial experience and respect throughout the industry for his economic expertise. Chad is an Ohio native, graduated from University of Mount Union, 2 national championships there. And today we will share some insights into the national and regional factors that determine the outlook for our economy. Everyone, please help me in welcoming Chad.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited to be here. I know this is not a topic that a lot of people get excited about, but I'm excited to share some of the observations that we have for you. For the moment, though, I'm going to pile on the local and tell you why this is even a more special presentation for me here than maybe some other places that I've done this. And that is, I actually have some foundational roots with the Valley, and it comes from my mother. She's been working for 30 years here in the Valley for STEM learning and early childhood literacy with UAW, PBS, Head Start. So we're right there at the ground level, and I really see what's been going on here in the Valley over the last 30 years. And I got to tell you, the more recent years, lots of excitement, and you've heard that already from some of the speakers. And so as we go through our presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about the U.S. economy, and then we'll distill it down, a couple of observations for the local economy as well. Do we have the slide presentation? No? Bring this up for you because a good presentation starts off with a good tagline or a thesis that you're going to talk about, right? And so what we started off with is, have we landed the plane? That's a question my team's been asking for at least 6 to 8 months, if not more. And to understand this question, we're going to have to go back a couple of years. But before we do that, a couple of things about this presentation, some ground rules, if you will. First and foremost, please understand that we are apolitical. If you came here for a political discussion, I'm not your guy. Also, we tend to be very optimistic. We prefer to see the glass half full versus half empty. So if you came here for a lot of negativity, not going to get that either. Last, and this is probably more important than the other two, is we don't think in terms of highly technical data. We try to think high level and directionality of things. So this is not going to be a 400 level econ course. And I will promise and try as hard as I can to keep the geek speak to a minimum, okay? And where there is data points, I'll try to explain them for you. If they don't make kind of instant sense to you, hopefully you'll see. And again, it's about directionality. It's about some of the topical issues that we're dealing with right now. Let's real quick get one other piece of business out of the way. The next slide here, we'll talk about FNB. And Chris talked a little bit about it. Here's a little factoid, one of those who knew, and it really speaks to why we feel so confident about talking about our region, our economy. First sentence, FNB's been around since 1864. That's a long time. We've seen a lot of things, we've done a lot of things here in this region, and we're very proud of that. So that's the commercial for today. Let's go on to the next slide. We're going to talk about the table of contents. I mentioned we're going to cover the economic overview for you, some observations, then we'll get into some local, and then I'll leave you with some closing thoughts. Now, because of our time here today, I thought what I would do is just give you the punchline, right? Let's get to it. Let's talk about what our thesis is, and then we'll back it up with some of the imagery, some of the charts that we're talking about. So as I mentioned, we thought about, hey, have we landed this economic plane yet? And the question comes from the post-pandemic conversations, right? Particularly starting in 2022. 2022, and I'm going to use an acronym, and I'm glad my compliance team isn't here, but it started what we affectionately refer to as a WTF moment. Not the acronym you're thinking about, but it became Watch the Fed, right? And why did 2022 become a Watch the Fed moment? Well, it starts coming out of the pandemic. In the pandemic, we all know what happened. I don't need to revisit that. But from an economic standpoint, what we got was a huge capital injection, right? We had all of this stimulus. We got pent-up demand and limited supply. What does that do? That sends prices through the roof, right? Because you have people that have the demand, they have the ability to pay for things, but there's not a lot of those things to go around. Inflation goes up. And so when we think about watching the Fed has a dual mandate. Two things they're watching. Stability of prices in their terms, that's inflation in our terms, and employment. And so they're talking a lot about that. We just had a decision last week around this. So when you think about 2022, the Fed has very few levers to pull to bring down inflation. The idea from the Fed, and they refer to it as monetary policy, right? You'll hear me say monetary policy, that's what the Fed controls. Fiscal policy is what Congress controls. So monetary policy in 2022 what they had to do is start raising interest rates. When you take interest rates up, that takes cash out of the economic system, right? So when you take cash out of the economic system, you may still have demand, you have limited supply, but you don't have as much ability to pay for things. So hopefully price stability starts to take hold. And what you'll see in the first slide under the economic observations here is an inflationary slide. So the Fed, you can see where it spiked, okay? Just again, look at the charts in terms of directionality. You can see where it spiked in 2022. They had to do something. This is one side of the dual mandate. So they start to tighten, and what their target rate is 2%. So there's a blue line that goes across the middle of the chart there. That's their target. We're still above their target, but they're taking some action. We'll talk a little bit more about that here as we go. So you got the Fed taking action in 2022. Why did it take until 2024 for them to change course? They tightened, they tightened, they tightened, and they let it hold until 2024. Well, part of the challenge is you had monetary policy being tight in 2022, trying to take money out of the system. At the same time, fiscal policy was still loose. So the government was putting cash in at the same time they were trying to take cash out. That's why inflation kind of looks like this. It's been a stair step down because you still had the ability to pay for things. Now, you don't want to crater the economy by getting too tight, but there's been this stair step down, and now we're kind of approaching the Fed's level. The problem is, and you all feel this in your business, people like me, we talk about rate of change. Okay, the Fed's target is 2% year-over-year rate of change. What this chart really illustrates is if you go back to the time where we were coming out of the pandemic till now, all of the numbers since the pandemic are positive rate of change, quarter over quarter, year over year. But what it really is cumulative, right? And that's hard to talk about. So when you hear economists say, oh, we're moving at 2.8, 3%, people who are going to the grocery store are going, no, there's no way it's 3%. Well, this is why. Because we talk about rate of change, not cumulative. Cumulative will come back into the conversation here as we go. Take a look at the next side of the Fed's mandate. That's employment. Oop, one back. So before we get into this, when we look at employment, I'm going to show you openings and unemployment itself. That's why you're going to see this crisscross. I'm sorry, let's go into that employment chart. So on the top are the openings. I didn't want to scare anybody by saying, whoa, that's falling off a cliff. The openings, this is the JOLT survey, they are coming down. And the red line is unemployment. It's starting to tick back up, right? And so the Fed is saying, look, there's this delicate balance in the employment markets right now. And so what we need to do is think about our dual mandate of stability of prices, that's inflation, and full employment. The employment side now is the dominant side of the conversation. And so they started to ease. They made a cut in September, they made a cut in October. Why is this important? And we put those horizontal lines in there for you. Take a look at where those blue lines take us if we go pre-pandemic. We're at 2019 levels for unemployment and for job openings. So is it as delicate a balance as it's being made out to be right now? We're not sure. We're not 100% sure that this is the problem that it's being made out to be just yet. And so that's why the Fed last week, Chair Powell said, the cut in December isn't a guarantee. He's looking at this same data saying, well, wait a minute, maybe this balance is a balance and not something that is trending in the wrong direction. So we're going to continue to watch this, but monetary policy is easing. And so when we came into this year, we knew we had a series of policies to think about. And when we make decisions based on policy, not politics, right? And so the policies that we're watching, monetary first, fiscal, has been a problem, right? It's been kind of at odds with monetary policy over the last several years. We'll get to that here in a minute, but when the Fed makes decisions, they make decisions on interest rates, and that it looks like this. Let's go to the next chart, please. So another two-line chart for you. 2-year Treasury yields, 10-year Treasury yields. This one is important because it shows us a couple of things. One, the Fed has a long way to go in their monetary tools to get to that zero interest rate environment that we had for the better part of 10 years pre-pandemic. Right? Coming out of the GFC, we had zero interest rate environment. It also shows us what is a very healthy relationship between the 2-year Treasury yield and the 10-year. 2-year yields, you want those below 10-year yields. Makes sense, right? If I'm going to lock my money up for 10 years, I better get paid more interest than if I lock it up for 2. And so when the Fed makes their rate decisions, it affects yields that are interest rates that are 2 years and in. 2 years and beyond, that's influenced by things like the economy and inflation and those types of things. And what you don't want is an inverse relationship where people are locking their money up for 10 years and getting paid less than 2. That usually is a forecasting agent of a recession. That's not happening here. And more specifically, we have room to go to that historical relationship. The historical relationship between a 2-year yield and a 10-year yield is actually 1 full percent. So we're not in a bad place right now. In fact, there's room here for the Fed to navigate whatever might be coming their way in the next several months and quarters. So with that said, let's take a look at what fiscal's doing. Okay, this is the second primary policy we were looking at. This is government spending. Easy chart to look at. The pillar boxes that you see there, those pink ones, those are recessionary periods. So government spending is actually starting to align with monetary policy. And that's good. Those two harmonizing will be supportive, if not actually stimulative to the U.S. economy. That's our view of it. And so we think this is a good chart, and we think the fact that they're not at odds with each other could actually help with some of the other things going on in the economy. So 2 policies out of the way. We actually have 3 more items that we're going to discuss with you. We have a total of 5 things that we think are really influencing the economy right now. And I know you all are saying, well, so much noise out there. What should we even be looking at? These would be the first 2, right? These are key policy decisions that have been pushing the economy since we had our pandemic. So let's go to the next thing that we're looking at. And this one is actually, of the 5 things that we're looking at, we have one of them that is a potential headwind, and it's going to be for the consumers, like Brett was talking about. These are customs collections, so tariffs, right? And when we look at the tariff scenario, we know post-Liberation Day, it hasn't been as bad as what that original bark was, so the bite's not as bad as the bark. This, what it really speaks to us about is the fact that this is essentially consumption tax. Somebody's going to have to pay this. Where it's paid in the supply chain or the consumer perspective is yet to be determined. The ultimate level is yet to be determined as well, right? We came into the trade negotiations, particularly post-Liberation Day, thinking that we probably were going to get to a global average of something like 20%. The reality right now, as we sit, it's more in that 12% range in terms of the average tariff rate. Now, businesses, they're adaptive, they're fluid. We've seen that coming out of the pandemic. This one, again, this could be a potential headwind. We need to see where it goes, but for the data that we have at our disposal now, let's take a look at the next chart. If we really thought that the trade policy was going to have a restrictive effect on the U.S. economy, our trade deficit wouldn't necessarily look like this. So this is the U.S. trade deficit, that relationship between imports and exports. You can see there was a ton of pull-ahead activity in the first half of this year. That's that big spike down, way more imports than exports. We're starting to get back to something that's been a little more historically normal, right? And so the importers are doing what they need to do. The exporters are getting some things done because we have a little bit more competitive dollar. It's not as strong. That's a headwind to exporters. That's come down a little bit. That's a good thing. We're going to continue to watch this, but the way we've snapped back kind of signals to us that trade policy and the potential tariff impact isn't as great as maybe we had originally thought. We're going to continue to watch that one. That is our one headwind. So let's go to number 2 in terms of things that we haven't talked about from a policy perspective that weren't on maybe the radar of a lot of people, and that's tax policy. So we have monetary policy, that's supportive if not stimulative. Fiscal, supportive if not stimulative. Trade policy, bit of a headwind. Tax policy, this one is focused on the consumer, okay? There's a lot we can talk about with businesses, but collection rates for taxes didn't change, tax rates did. So when you think about early 2026 and things that could be supportive, if not stimulative to the U.S. economy, take a look at the expectations of refunds. They're massive. And so we're going to get this capital injection by way of refund to the U.S. consumer, almost to the tune of $1,000 a person higher. That's the average, right? That's what this chart's showing us. That's going to be a really good thing for the U.S. economy in 2026 to start because it's 2-part. Either people spend it, or those who are savers and investors, that goes back into the capital markets, right? So this could be a good news story early in 2026 that's supported. Everybody's with us? Doing good? All right, let's get into a little bit more of the data. Let's go to the next slide here, please. This is the problem with some of the things that we've been talking about, though. We've had a disconnect with soft data, the survey data like consumer confidence, consumer sentiment, and when you look at what people are saying, it's been on a negative trend. They don't feel good about their current situation. They're worried about inflation. They're worried about a lot of things. The bottom line is retail sales, so actual consumption continues to trend higher. So we hear consumers saying, yeah, we don't feel real great about this, but they continue to spend. This is the wealth effect in effect. So people's portfolio values are higher, home values are higher, they're okay, and they have room to spend. So we're going to continue to watch this because you could get a moment in time where the consumer says, now I'm done. I've had enough, I'm pulling back, we're not going out and spending. But to date, that hasn't happened. Let's take a little further look here too. So these are businesses, same thing, right? There's so much going on. There's some negative survey data coming in, and we're going to continue to watch this because this will change behaviors. But if we look at the next slide, again, think of directionality. What we're going to show you on this next one is our building blocks. These are 5 parts of the economy. A lot of them are interest rate sensitive. You have manufacturing there in the yellow. You have autos. You have housing. We put a vertical line in here for you because if you look at the last 6 months, we've actually seen a turn. We've seen some positive developments in these segments of the U.S. economy. And again, they're building blocks of the U.S. economy. So things may seem bad from day to day. There's, again, a lot of negativity out there. But when we get to the data and what's actually happening in the U.S. economy, there's some positive developments. And we're good with that. We like that. We think that can continue through 25 and into 2026. And there's one more catalyst. I gave you 4. Here comes the 5th one. If we can go to the next slide. It's U.S. businesses. And here we're going to show you the S&P 500 and the earnings expectations and the fact that they've had high earnings expectations year over year, and they continue to meet or beat those expectations. We're right in the teeth of Q3 earnings season right now, and things are still looking pretty good. Now, you might see negative data points like this morning. Overnight, we had some tech earnings announcements. They're debating it this morning, and this is where we're at in terms of markets. Markets are forward-looking vehicles, 6 to 12 months. They can get ahead of themselves. They also can get a little exuberant, right? We will be the first to tell you we don't believe this is the late 90s. We think this is a different scenario, a different setup. But you have Wall Street analysts debating whether 9.2% earnings growth is good or bad in this environment. 9.2 earnings growth is pretty good. If your expectation was 9.7 and they came in at 9.2, it's still growth, and it's positive high growth in the current environment. So we're looking at those things and we're saying, yep, okay, we hear it, but earnings for U.S. companies have been positive. They continue to have high expectations. Next year, the average estimate for earnings next year for the S&P 500 is 14%, almost 14, 13.8 right now. That's a lot. So markets are still forecasting growth into next year, right? Let's take a look at some other things here. Next slide. This is a big reason why. And hopefully you all can read this because the statistic is mind-boggling. We know that AI is a major driver of the U.S. economy right now. But take a look at this. 4 companies. This is from their Q2 earnings reports. Their Q3s kind of solidified this. $344 billion of capital expenditures this year. This is happening in the U.S. economy. It is going abroad, but large part of it is going here in the U.S. economy. $344 billion. You all remember TARP, that Troubled Asset Relief Program that came out in the Great Financial Crisis? That was the cash injection for the banks, $204 billion. So now we have 4 companies spending the equivalent of what used to be a government rescue package. Seems like a catalyst for the U.S. economy in our opinion. It also, if you see the bottom one, that $344 billion is bigger than 142 different economies around the world, according to the IMF, International Monetary Fund. That's wild. Now, these things will actually help us here in the Valley. This capital expenditure is not just unique to these 4. There's a lot of spend on technology. And there may be some displacement of jobs, but arguably we're going to end up at a point where we're working with AI, not for AI, right? and there's going to be efficiency gains, there's productivity gains that can come from it, but there's also picks and shovels. And we're in the picks and shovels moment here for this kind of spending. So we're really constructive on the U.S. economy, but let's get a little further down here. Let's take a look at the next section. Some state and local observations for you. So the first one we have dovetails back into the Fed's dual mandate of full employment, right? So this first chart in the local section is unemployment. And when you think about unemployment here in the Valley, we have to look regionally too. So we put a couple of other cities here from Ohio and the national average. So we get a sense of what's going on, not just here, but kind of in some corollaries around our region. And what we find is that blue line, we have different rates of change. We maybe started at different levels, but that blue line tells us we're at those 2019 levels. Now, what's interesting about 2019 when we talk about employment at the national level, we hadn't seen those employment levels since the late 60s. And so, again, is it as troubling as we think? It could be if this trend continues, but for right now, we're in a good spot with our employment. And it gets a little better when you take a look at the next slide, because unemployment is only part of the story. Let's take a look at where those job gains have come from and where there's growth in jobs. And you can see from this chart, the majority of the sectors that we have hiring here in the Valley for, they're trending up since the pandemic, right? We come out of the pandemic and we're trending higher in a lot of sectors. And in some cases, we're actually higher than we were pre-pandemic in terms of employment. That's really good news, particularly when you see the green one, which is manufacturing. And that's part of our core competency here in the Valley, right? That's lifeblood. And we're doing really well coming out of the pandemic, building jobs here in the Valley. Let's take a look at another data point here on this next slide for you. When we think about inflation and the consumer saying, well, it's cumulative inflation. I go to the grocery store, it still hurts. I buy other things, it still hurts. One of the things that helps to reduce that pain is when you have wage growth. And the good news is we have wage growth here in the Valley, and it's on a positive trend. So that's a good thing as well. Let's give you one more here. And this speaks to something that we think is a competitive advantage right now. This next slide, we talk about housing. We all feel that pain, right? And the sticky part of inflation is housing. That's one of the areas where it's really hard to bring that cost down because you have peaks at you. The Fed's looking at owner-occupied rents, and rent stays high. Rent is an interesting dynamic. If you look at this and housing prices in Ohio and the way the trajectory has gone, we've had good growth in housing here, price-wise. We need a little bit more affordable housing projects being built, and I know that there are a lot of folks in this room working on that, but we circled where we're at on housing prices here in the Valley. There's a little bit of a dip right now. That's okay, but what's interesting is if you look at Case-Shiller data, for example, Pittsburgh and the surrounding area, including Youngstown, because Pittsburgh's really one of the few, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, those are the ones around us that would be in that Case-Shiller index. Pittsburgh is perhaps the only, if not one of the very few major cities in the country right now where it's still as affordable to own a home versus rent. And that's true here too. It's as affordable, if not even more affordable to own versus rent. And that is a competitive advantage when you're trying to attract people here because wages are moving higher, affordability is good, and so we think the Valley's well positioned for end of 25 into 2026, and there's a lot of positive talking points for people in this room. So with that, I promised I'd try to be quick. I'm going to give you some closing thoughts, and then I'll exit the stage. So closing thoughts for you, we put them in a bullet point form, just some things that we're thinking about. Probably the one that jumps off the page for all of you is our recession estimates, 30 to 35% right now. We just don't see it. 5 things we gave you, monetary policy, fiscal policy, and we had tax policy in there. We have U.S. businesses spending and doing well. One headwind, is trade policy, tariffs. So we just don't see where we're heading for an immediate and imminent recession. That's our call. We think that will hold. We're probably in a soft patch, right? We're probably in a bit of a malaise, and then we'll see the U.S. economy reaccelerate in 2026. So those are our thoughts for you. Hopefully these things are useful. As Chris mentioned, if there's things that we can be helping with, data points you want to talk about, reach out to any of the folks here from FNB. We are absolutely happy to help. So thank you for your time. Have a great, wonderful day.
But at the very least, we got a new way to use WTF, and he's not walking off the stage thinking the other WTF, which is good news, right? All right, finally this morning we'll close our program with a look at the forces shaping our local economy. Youngstown-Warren Regional Chamber President and CEO Guy Coviello will share insight on the progress and some of the opportunities defining the Valley's growth. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Guy Coviello.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm now about 4.5 years into closing out these signature events. And over those last 4.5 years, you've all heard me speak very bullishly about the local economy. We had a couple news events, one last week, one this week, that conceivably could cause a little hiccup in my bullishness. We had, for the first time in probably 8 years, an economic development event that triggered a war notice. I grew up here where war notices and those level of events were happening every year, every other year. We've had a nice run here for a while. But that could easily cause us to think that there's a little bit of a hiccup. And then, of course, this week, we lost the opportunity for a data center, a $3.6 billion project that would have created 120 jobs and an average salary of $175,000 per person, a level of brain gain that we haven't seen here in many decades. Well, I'm still bullish on the local economy, and I think it'll help to put a couple of those news events into proper perspective. Altium Cells, when they came here several years ago, promised us 1,100 jobs. Today, there are 2,200 people working. Even after their correction, which is from a downturn in the market, they're still going to be far beyond what they've ever promised. That downturn's short-lived. The orders are coming back mid-next year. And so one of the things the company has done that we're very aware of is they've invested in the plant so that when they come out at the other end, they are going to be more resilient. They're going to be here for a long time, and they're going to be bigger than they ever promised that they would be. So I want to put that in perspective. And then the data center, kind of our first at-bat. You're not always going to get a hit your first at-bat. But we've had a lot of communities already reach out and say, hey, we're ready to roll out the red carpet data. And so there will be other at-bats. And so we will see that kind of investment in our community in the future. So I wanted to make sure we put those two events in perspective as to why I'm still very bullish on the Mahoning Valley economy. Lots of other reasons, and we've heard them today. Companies like Redex and Utterly Smooth, innovating, growing from Youngstown to a worldwide market, gives us confidence in our community. There's a lot of companies out here, the Redexes of the Mahoning Valley. People like Dr. Alexander Rager that our community produces, whether they stay here or go on, they're doing incredible things in the world. And so we continue to produce those kinds of people here in the Mahoning Valley. Companies like, or organizations like Magnet that gave the award to Redex today. Magnet has helped many local manufacturers create efficiencies, improve their operations, and be more competitive. And I would encourage all of you, whether you're in the manufacturing space or your clients are in the manufacturing space, tap into that resource that Magnet offers our local community. Companies like ServPro Team Dobson, an incredible philanthropic, locally owned, family-owned business that is doing remarkable things in our community, generous enough to offer that Cleveland Browns, San Francisco 49ers experience today, and continuing to do those great things for our community. And Akron Children's Hospital that we raised money for today that continues to give us a competitive advantage in trying to find a workforce to be here because there's care for kids that is unparalleled anywhere else in the United States. First National Bank, thank you for today's insight, but a main staple in our economy, main staple in our community for a long time and for a long time to come. People like Herb and Terrell Washington. I would like you to make sure that you take home today the brochure that's at your table. We launched this year the Herb and Terrell Washington Office of Economic Opportunities and Inclusion Initiative. And we're making a big difference for our micro businesses throughout the Mahoning Valley. We'll continue to do that into 2026 and beyond. Organizations like the Youngstown Business Incubator. We're supporting Youngstown Business Incubator's $1.75 million Rising Tides grant, helping manufacturers modernize, helping manufacturers in the four-county Lake-to-River region bring new products to market and improve their regional supply chain. So all of those things are giving me a lot of reasons to be much as bullish on the economy as I was 4.5 years ago when I stood here. I think Chad's forecast validates my feeling. Seeing some of his optimism from an expertise far beyond mine, and touching on the points that we've been focusing on and validating the decisions that we made many years ago. We made growing population and talent a number one priority because we saw the jobs gaining, and we needed to make sure we have the people here. Depending on the source, we've increased our population, I believe, 2 years in a row for the first time since the 1970s. And we hopefully will continue to see that growth through the rest of the decade. We've partnered up with Goodwill to work on helping marginalized individuals overcome barriers to employment. We've seen our labor force grow 3 years in a row for the first time since the 1990s. And it looks like, it's early to tell, but it looks like our labor participation rate has improved as well, which the ultimate goal is to get a lot more people off the sidelines and into the workforce here. We've made housing our number 2 priority. And we have seen since that partnership with the Eastgate Council of Governments focusing on housing, our housing prices, our housing sale prices have increased drastically, one of the highest in the United States. I always cringed when we would talk about how cheap our houses were because that's not a sign of a healthy economy. But the rate of growth of our housing sale prices is the sign of a housing economy, and yet we're still one of the few communities in the U.S. where housing is affordable, as Chad pointed out. Several years ago, we made a conscientious decision that we're not just going to accept any old job like we had been for a long time when we were a little bit more desperate as a community. We want the high-wage, family-wage jobs. And over the last 4 years, the gap between the hourly wage in the Mahoning Valley and the hourly wage in the rest of the country has narrowed. We're increasing our hourly wages faster than the rest of the country. So all of these things continue to make me very bullish on the local economy. We do think it's going to be a good 2026. We do think it's going to be a good rest of the decade. We know we have more work to do. Something that came up this week we know we have to do is do a much better job of educating this community on the efficacies of data center. And we will focus on that in 2026. And we will make sure all of our communities have a full understanding of the pros and cons of a data center to make sure we're taking advantage of that opportunity that's in front of us. All of that is made possible because of all of you. We can't do our work without your support. So the 400-some people that are here, thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting our events. All of the sponsors in the program, all the sponsors that Steve had mentioned, we can't do this without you. Thank you very, very much. And as you leave today, please pay attention to these corporate banners. 2 of them here. There's many more throughout. These are our partner level members that support us more than anybody else, and we really want to see these businesses get supported by all of you. It's very important. We can't do the work for this community if we don't have that level of support from our corporate citizens here. So thank you very much for that. That's it for me. I hope you guys have a rest of the day that is very productive, very good, and a rest of the year that is very productive and very good. And we're all going to have a great 2026. Thank you.